So we've discussed innovation. And again, I like your play on this is that it's still part of culture, right?
Absolutely.
And it's communication, it's feedback, it's a safe environment. And when you start to accumulate ideas and you put the dots together, we now have innovation. And guess what? We have ideas for the future. Part of leadership was future-based. There's a key element that I know you talk a lot about, which is change. Innovation requires change.
Absolutely.
And in an organization, the bigger it is, the harder it is usually to change. Tell me a little bit more about strategies of, because we all have to change. It's just, you have to. How do you do it effectively though? And how in your trainings and your consulting, create that change management?
Okay. I'm going to suggest something that everybody knows instinctually. I'm going to ask a question, then I'm not going to ask you the question. I'm going to ask it, and then I'm going to answer it myself. What's the biggest obstacle to change in organizations? People, right? So we have to then go the next step. Why are people resistant to change? Well, there are a lot of reasons, and there's a small fraction of people in your life who are resistant to change just because we become convinced that they get up in the morning with the sole purpose of making our lives miserable, right? But that's not really many people. Right. There aren't a lot of people doing that. People resist change because they're afraid of it. Right. They're afraid of change. They don't know what the future's going to look like. They don't know if their work hours change, are they going to be able to go to their son's soccer game? Or if they've moved over this other department, they know how to do their job. If they're moved over here, are they going to be any good at what they do? They're afraid of change. So the first thing we have to do is help people understand the necessity of the change, the need for the change. And then we have to create a sense of urgency. We have to create a sense of urgency, and the sense of urgency can be it can emerge from crisis. It can emerge from we've got to change, or we're going to have a serious problem here. So I might go to my doctor, and he might say, you know, dude, you better exercise a little bit and drop a couple of pounds, or you're going to have a heart problem. Okay, that's one level of urgency. But when I actually have the problem, that's another level of urgency. So you want to create some urgency around the need for change and help people understand why change is necessary. And it can emerge from a crisis, or it can be a hopeful. It can be a hopeful urgency. Imagine how great it would be if we did this. Imagine how cool this would be if we actually did this. Yes. That's a hopeful sense of urgency. Right. So first thing you got to do, you got to understand that people are not, at least in my world, people are not inherently difficult to deal with. We're all difficult at points and at times, and people are basically pretty nice, you know? People are basically okay. So when you start peeling that back and asking, why is this person resisting the change? And can I help them overcome that fear? Can I give them some comfort that will help them move forward? That's a really big step.
And so I think that the old model of leadership, there was a lot talked about motivation. You know, what motivates you, what motivates a team. And you brought up a really good point, is that we can have a traumatic experience, which is what I call a pain motivator.
Absolutely.
Thus it gets your attention and I have to change something. Yet as a leader, and you mentioned that leadership's about the future, and you use the word imagine, right? Imagine how great this is going to be in the future is a great frame to go from. And yet you still have, let's say it's 1,500 people in an organization, they all have their individual motivators. They're all afraid of change. That's a huge thing for a leader to take in. I mean, they may be excited, they may have the hope, and then how do they communicate that to that? So change is complicated, to say the least.
Beyond complicated, it's slow.
It's slow, all right?
It's slow.
And yet in our environment where things are, the competition's always there, everything is happening so quickly, I don't think change is quick enough to stay going, right? There's a lot of turnover with organizations now and so on and so forth. If I don't, we joke about football sometimes, right? It's like, well, NFL team.
Football's not been funny this year.
An NFL team goes 7-9. The coach has been there 1 year. They got to fire him.
Yeah.
Right, there is no patience now involved. Yeah. So it's a weird where we have to be patient, yet we also have to look to the future, and there's change. And that change management, it sounds like that is a key skill that a leader has to have as they go forward. Is there anything else with change that you feel is necessary as we go forward?
Yeah, I think you've got to create this sense of urgency. You've got to, as I said, you've got to help people understand either through, as you say, a pain motivator or what I call a sense of hopefulness, that this change needs to happen, and this is why it needs to happen. I think there's some other things. You've got to help people understand the route from here to here. So I can't jump. Well, I can't jump at all, but I can't jump from here to that spot 10 feet over on the floor. I can't do that. There's no amount of training, nothing you're going to do for me. I can't do that. But you know, I can probably hop 2 feet, and I can hop 2 feet, and I can hop 2 feet, and then I hop 1 more 2 feet, and I'm there. So you got to help people understand this is the strategy, this is the goal, this is our aspirational future. But we're not going to go from here to here. We're going to have to take these steps. So people need to understand what the steps are. I know you want to get there. I'm down with that. I'm good with that. But I don't understand how we get there. I don't think I can do it. So help them understand, this is how our organization is going to get from here to here. These are the steps that we're going to take. And every time you make one of those 2-foot hops, stop and celebrate it. Have a little party.
Right.
Now, it doesn't have to be a party. It can just be a minute. And I'm the worst at this. You know, I'm the guy in the corner of the bar when my football team's playing and there's a decent play and they're up yelling and screaming. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's a first down. That's your job. Save that for a touchdown, you know? I'm the worst about this. And people who've worked with me for 30 years will tell you this. I'm the worst about this because I get focused down here and I don't like to celebrate the small wins. Right. You got to celebrate the small wins because people need that opportunity to refuel and reflect.
Yeah, I know one of the big motivators for people is recognition, right? And they asked him, deep down, would you rather have a raise or recognition? And a lot of us say recognition, right? They want to be told they're doing a good job. It helps motivate them for the future because the raise will wear itself off, and they'll always be there. So I think that's a key element. So one of the last things that I want to talk about is showing up, okay? So in my business model, I'm looking at how each individual performs on a day-to-day basis, how they're focusing, how their attitude is, their energy levels, because I feel that if they take care of those things, then they can lead better, they can communicate better, so on and so forth. And we get everything from emotional management and so on and so forth. So when we look at showing up, share a story with me about, as a leader, where you saw that showing up was a key part of the process.
Oh, that's easy. And this is such a silly story. It's such a silly story. And it probably goes back, I'm going to say 15 years ago now, maybe. And you know where I worked, the university that I worked previously, and there's a parking lot. And not to make this complicated, but there was a standard parking lot with pull-in parking spaces, drive-in parking spaces. And then out on the edge of the parking lot on the perimeter, there were a set of parallel spaces where you could parallel park. And I don't know why, but I got into the habit of parking out there. Now, so the parking lot's out here. I've parked way out on the edge of the parking lot. My team and my offices were in the adjacent building with their windows facing the parking lot. So I'd pull in and I'd walk across this parking lot, which I'm going to say was probably 50 to 75 yards. And all the time I'm doing that, anybody on this side of the building who happened to be looking out the window could see me coming. So one day I come in and somebody says, "Hey, you okay?" I go, "Yeah, I'm fine." Why? He goes, "I don't know. Saw you walking in from your car. You didn't look very happy." Now, I've said there are no aha moments. This was a moment of clarity, though. And I realized that you got to show up. So I realized for me, showing up wasn't having a smile on my face when I walked through the office door. Showing up was getting out of my car because people were looking. Right. So there are two lessons in that. You've got to act like you have someplace to be, it's important to be there, and you are really happy to be going there. Even those days when you don't feel that way. You got to take that extra second in the car or wherever it is and get some spring in your step, number one. The second lesson for me about that was, it's like relearning what you already know, is how much of an element of theater there is in leadership. People are watching you, and they're watching you all the time, and they're watching you when you don't think they're watching you. And we could do countless examples, but when you're on, you're on.
Right.
And you gotta act like you're happy to be there, even if you're not having your best day.